This overload.
Welcome to Technically Speaking, the show for the technically challenged. Today we have a brand new topic that we haven't talked about yet, how books get published. Now I don't know if writing a book is something that you've aspired to, or maybe just wondered how they got on the bookshelf. But we're fortunate that we're going to be talking about that today with someone who has published books. Whether you go to a publisher yourself or publish them yourself, your books can get right from your pad or your head into somebody else's hand. So please welcome with me author, and I'm fortunate, my brother-in-law, Craig Schwab.
It's a pleasure to be here.
I am delighted you are here.
Yes, finally.
Could I tell everyone how you got roped into this first?
Please, go for it.
Well, I love the email that you sent me saying, oh my gosh, I think you should really talk about self-publication. And you went on for, I don't know, a page and a half.
As writers do.
As writers do. And I didn't even read the page and a half. I went, woo,
As readers
reply.
do. Right.
I hit reply. I said, wow, sounds great. So when are you free?
Yes, and here we are.
And here we are.
Yes, wonderful.
So publishing on the web. Well, I see a stack of books in front of you, so obviously you're a successful author.
Well, let's not say successful. I'm prolific.
Prolific is good.
Yes, yes.
Well, there's a lot of people, I'm sure, who would love to write a book.
Yes, and that's why I wanted to share how they can go about doing that.
I think that's terrific. Well,
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us. So you mentioned to me when we were talking that this is not new, publishing your own book, that other people have done this.
Well, the history of self-publishing is quite fascinating, and the list of the people that have a history where they started as self-publishing is quite interesting.
Okay, so like famous people.
Famous
not that you're
people.
not famous.
No, and fame is not something, I think, when you set out to write that you look to do, a la J.K. Rowling, who was on welfare
That's
when
right.
she put together the Harry Potter books, and now she's a billionaire.
Richer than the Queen.
Yes, riches and queen, and and deservedly so.
Yeah.
Because it was a unique passage for her to bring those characters to light, and hats off to her.
So I see you have a list here. Edgar Allan Poe, John Grisham, these people are all self-published?
They started out self-publishing, and all of them come from a very unique way in how we define self-publishing.
Okay.
Whitman, with Leaves the Grass, started out with 12 poems, and he had access to a printer, a typeset. He actually typesetted his own book.
His own book?
His own book, and then set about practically giving it away to people that he knew. And when it was done, it was over 400 poems, and it is what it is today, one of the pinnacle books in poetry. And Grisham, again, I think there were 5,000 books printed of A Time to Kill, which became a movie with Tom Cruise
Right.
and what have you. He sold the books out of the trunk of his car until, lo and behold, the big publishers, looking and...
Do that many people buy things out of other people's trunks?
You know,
maybe I'm a little too suspicious.
I have a hatchback, and I'm thinking of buying a car with a trunk so I can sell the books out of the trunk. It's something to
and then
think
some
about.
great publisher happens to walk by and buy your book.
You just never, it is, and that's the thing that a lot of you viewers should know, setting out. If you have an inkling to write the book, just write it, and think about everything else that can happen later afterwards, okay? Just tell your story.
Well, you had said to me that, writing is, you just do it. Don't
Absolutely.
wait, don't think about it.
Yeah, and it's not something that, everyone has that phrase that they hear time and again. Oh, I could write a book about that. Or you should write a book about that.
I'm sure you get that a lot.
Yeah,
no one's ever told me that.
Well, no, I think it's a natural phrase in the English language, and everyone can, and everyone that thinks they can should.
Well, you can, obviously. You have a stack in front of you. So you had mentioned to me that they're all different in how they came to light.
Yes, they all become part of what we want to talk about today, self-publishing in the 21st century. But the first couple of books that I put out came about because of the birth of the internet.
Okay.
And, if I was to just take this one, for example, all right, In the Forest by the Light of Day, catchy title. And the birth of this book came about because I belong to a music group on a digest. Longtime listener of a show on the air since I was a young boy called Idiot's Delight by Vince Scelsa. And lo and behold, the internet comes into being, and I start sending, stories, poems, what have you, up to this website in his honor. Mm-hmm. And a couple contacted me out of nowhere. I don't know who these people are. And they said, we like what you do. Can we publish a book? So,
So it really does happen like that.
It sounds as strange as it sounds, but this is before the whole thought process went into creating what we're here to talk about. This went old school. We went to a printer in upstate New York. We designed everything on our own, and it was, a number of about 200 copies were printed.
So we're here sitting with a limited edition.
Very limited. This may be the last one. But I say that happily because they were quite good at marketing and promoting, which is what any writer needs.
Right.
I wish they were still part of my team, but I don't have. But anyway, the book came out and right before Thanksgiving, and it was sold out by Christmas.
Fantastic.
The caveat being, they printed it. They paid probably $5 a copy to have it printed. Sold it for $15. The book sold out, and they kept all the profits. So I saw nothing.
You're just a line item
I'm just,
on the cover.
I got my name on the book, which is the dream come true. Right?
Yes, it's lovely.
Right. Yeah. And from that, you're amazed at the different ways things do when they're promoted well. What happens? A gentleman called me. Mm-hmm. Again, don't know who this man was. Wow. And he said, I liked your book. Would you be interested in helping me tell my life story? And how do you even respond to that? It's not the type of writing I do.
Right.
Turns out that Tony Lombardo, who lived in Levittown, Long Island, an amazing gentleman, had multiple sclerosis, and he wanted me to tell his story, but in such a unique way that it became a challenge.
Right.
That I wanted to be involved in this project. And again, we put the book out, but we went through a vanity press.
Okay, tell us about these vanity presses.
Anyone can go on to the internet, and let's say you have a product. You've written this book, and you want to now publish the book. You can go a couple of different ways. You can go send it to the big Simon & Schuster and
and be rejected 50 times.
Yeah, and then you can wallpaper your room with the rejection slips, or you can do it on your own.
Okay.
And that seems the way a lot of people are going today. And that's the way I wanted to go with this.
Okay.
So I went in, looked in, and what you discover is it's $1 billion industry.
Oh, I bet.
What occurred was it's like a Chinese menu almost.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And what occurs is you find out that, all these different companies out there, whether it's an Author House, iUniverse, Dog Ear, Exlibris. These are names of these self-publishing vanity presses.
Okay.
And all of them have similar packages. Package A is usually how much it's going to cost you to publish the book.
Okay.
And then package B is the features that come with that book.
Right.
And the features are necessary to understand for your viewers because there are different things. You can use these vanity presses for a number of ways. For example, $100, you can publish a book.
Okay.
Okay. What's going to happen with that? You're going to get the book. And that's interesting for us to keep in mind as we proceed through the whole process here. Because what happens is the higher the amount of money they charge you,
Right.
the more features they say they're going to make available for you.
Makes sense.
Right. Just like buying a car.
Right.
Okay? And what happens with the higher end one is they make available your book, gets a book release that's sent out across the book world. There's the whole availability on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, any book selling, website, suddenly there it is, okay? So you want to go with the high end. You want to promote this in the best way
Of
you
course, why wouldn't
possibly
you?
can. So with that, we put the book out through I used a company called Outskirts Press.
Okay.
And when we put out the book, now it comes into being where there's templates set out on the website, and you have to follow the steps. Quite
Okay.
easy to follow. Very, very, very user-friendly. This particular cover on both sides of the fence that I wrote with Tony Lombardo, and the one night he said to me, Craig, my life's been like I've lived in heaven and hell at the same time. And as I was writing the book, understanding multiple sclerosis from his vantage point was quite illuminating, because it's not something you want to wish on anyone.
No.
Yet his spirit was fantastic. So my children always tease me by giving me different art supplies and what have you, and I actually painted the cover for the book.
You did that?
I
didn't
did
know that.
Yeah.
Wow, nice.
Never did anything since, but yeah.
If you're going to reach the pinnacle the first time.
Right. Well, no. Yeah. So those are the So the vanity press in this regard worked very well.
Okay.
Yeah. And I liked it. And subsequently, as writers go, all of us think, we have the great American novel hidden somewhere inside us.
Well, yeah, but I see the great American novel in front of you right
Yes, and it's interesting that earlier when we were speaking, because of the Facebook, Twitter, and what have you, there's an attention deficit disorder related to anything that's over 5 lines.
Okay, I admit, I have a short attention span.
And no,
too.
it's acceptable today, but it doesn't stop a writer from thinking he might have something worthy to share. And the novel, Something in the Neighborhood of Real, also came about because of things said as you're growing up. And this is a coming-of-age story.
Okay.
And you try to connect dots. So what you're looking at took 20, 30 years to write. And
You have more patience than me.
Well, your viewers should know that, I think a lot of times they're intimidated by the whole process of writing per se, and they don't do it.
Right.
And I want to, emphasize to them that if there's thought process there, that they think they have something worthy of sharing, they should do it.
Well, you're very kind to think that everyone has something worthy of sharing, but I grant that. And also, as we get older and our children should know more about who they are and where they came from.
Yeah.
Your kids have the novel.
Yeah, well, the family dynamic is such that we both know we have actors in our line. So,
Yes, we do.
So they feed off of a lot of stories that we share with them. I had the fortunate upbringing that my dad drove a truck for the Daily News, and one day as a young boy, I heard a horn playing as I was helping him off his truck, and there was Louis Armstrong standing there. And it just made an impression on me that it always stayed there. How am I going to connect this to a story, you know? And the funny thing happens is you just never know. Like, you're actually saying I'm being kind, but I think everyone has a story in it.
No, that's what, you're right. You're right.
You know,
maybe not a story that everybody wants to read, but not every book is for every person.
Even that, even if it's a legacy for the family,
right? I think that's fabulous.
Having,
yes.
You know? So this came about because a buddy of mine, his parents that I knew growing up, and his name was Tom Huber, and that name will come up again. All right, and Tommy and I grew up, we knew each other since we were 10 years old. And then you grow old, you go to school, and what happened with him is his parents subsequently passed away, and then I got the phone call, which is, can you help me clean out my house?
Oh, okay.
All right, now all during our childhood, his basement was the place to be.
Right.
All right, and while we were there, his father had an office in the back of the basement, and we'd always hear him clicking away on his typewriter, and you know, it's like, so to this day, we'd be listening to the Beatles or what have you, and I'll listen to a Beatles song, and I'll say, how come that doesn't have that clicking sound in that, you know, what did they erase? Because
that's what you were used to.
That's what I was used to hearing growing up. And we cleaned out his house, and it, you know, I don't know if you ever had to do that for someone, it's difficult. You know when to leave the room and what have you. So the basement was left for last. That was our sanctuary growing up. And when we cleaned out the basement and the final things are out on the curb or stacked away in his car, and he left the building, I was sitting on the stoop. I knew to leave when the last things would come out. And he left, and I said, I'm going to just sit here. I wanted to be the last one sitting on his stoop. And he got to his car, and he said, I left something on the basement stairs. And I went, what? And I went to the basement, and there was his dad's typewriter. And in the paper, he said, tell our story. So that was really a homage to friendship. Who bought it? I don't care. It was for him.
That's nice.
And that's what you do. And most people, your viewers, should know that's the kind of sentiment that goes into really being genuine with the things you want to share with your family. Because a lot of books that come out, you know, what if in a lot of ways they have grandiose dreams and delusions? No, don't. That's just luck. You go in and buy a lotto ticket, okay?
Right.
So that's where you got to be coming from. Otherwise, there's a lot of people in psychoanalysis because they didn't become, you know, the next Stephen King or something. I don't know. Right.
So, publishing-wise, this was also with those vanity presses.
That's correct. And
that's expensive.
The price gets, you know, pretty up there. You're talking about $1,000 for the full package.
Okay.
The Cadillac of the packages through the vanity presses.
Right.
And then comes the whole rigmarole of self-promotion. So there's a lot of emails back and forth that you have to send if you want to, you know, maybe the local newspaper will do an article on your book being released, or you're sending it to a bookstore, which are becoming non-existent, okay? I was fortunate that I hit home runs with my novel, that the Daily News did an incredible full-page article on the book. And then I had book signing and a reading at Borders Books right before they closed their whole thing. So I had that run. So the outlets for those kind of things are limited.
Right.
But, you know, go back to the whole selling the book on your own. So what happens is a lot of people will set themselves up at local school fairs or,
Makes sense.
and, just promote the book that way.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, so the vanity presses play a huge role, and they're still highly in demand today. A lot of people feel that they've become almost, one-on-one with the people that they talk to at these vanity presses.
Right.
I heard recently there was a few major, big time authors that said they wish they were promoting their own stuff, because then they have more rights to the money that
Right.
you might make from selling that.
Yeah, I hear you.
And again, another book that I put out through the same publisher was
my favorite.
Yeah. Well, it's got your attention span.
It does have my attention span. It's a book of short stories.
Short stories. And again, with the vanity presses, you have the way of, you build your own cover. This painting was done by my niece, my brother's daughter, who's a wonderful artist, and I wanted her talent to be exhibited. Okay, I should go back to the novel. This has a crazy story about it. This gentleman is in Israel, and we're both friends who knew each other from the first book, because he's also a member of the fan club for Vince Skelser.
Oh, okay.
And lo and behold, he's a painter, and
Right.
he's a documentary. He lives in Israel, and we talked, and his life story is in this painting. So you have two life stories here in one book. So right here, folks. So there's different ways. You have to know when you use the vanity presses that you're in total control of what you want it to look like. And let's say you're not as computer savvy. There's all kinds of templates.
Right.
That allow you to just use their help. And the more you want to market the book, the more the vanity presses are going to cost.
Right.
You have to know that.
Makes sense.
A lot of times it has happened where someone that used a vanity press was picked up by the big boys, and then they have a contract for the American dream for being a writer. Okay, but it shouldn't stop anyone from putting their stuff out there.
Now, I have to ask you, we're sitting here with a pile of books, but you also have a flash drive.
Yeah, I'm going to go, what happens with this is, and this is a story unto itself. Remember I mentioned my friend Tommy Huber?
Yep.
His father with the kid. Just so happened Tommy and I went to high school together. When we graduated from high school, he went his way, I went my way. And literally the internet becomes your companion, because now we're talking, through the years and what have you, how are you? Pictures of his kids, pictures of my children.
Right.
In a lot of ways, that's the way people stay in touch. But when we graduated from high school, and now who would have thought 40 years later, just told everyone my age, the whole thing, we wanted to do something special.
Okay.
So I said, listen, we have this reunion coming up. Let's write a book about what happened the last 40 years since we left school. And we did that, and that's an amazing, thing, to write a book with a friend that you've known your whole life, and you find out things you never knew.
Right.
Came time to put the book out. Even using the vanity press route would have cost us a small fortune. So we were, pretty much in a lurch there. What are we going to do? We have the reunion coming up. What are we going to do? We came up with the idea to put the whole novel on a flash drive.
Very cool. That's right up my alley on Technically Speaking.
Yeah, and we put the title of the book on one side and our names on the other side, and we handed this out to the 100 or so.
Wow. Didn't you look cool?
It was cool because, the presentation was awesome. We're standing there with this, Staples printed book, and everyone's thinking, oh no, don't give me that. I don't want to carry that.
Right.
And we pull out this,
And everyone was like,
it was
yes.
great because, you know, they could erase it and use it for anything else.
Stop.
You know? And that was how that went about.
Nice.
And then what happened was people that weren't at the reunion started making requests on Facebook for copies. Well, you know, it's a file.
Right. Just upload
We're
it.
telling the people who's asking, just send them the file.
Right.
Okay? And then there are, thank God, people out there who still say, no, I want the book.
Oh.
Yeah, there's still some of us left.
I like books.
Yeah, yeah.
I might be a techie person, but I like books.
Yeah, well, we'll get into the whole Kindle thing in a moment. But, you know, so there was that. And we explained, listen, we can't afford it, you know. And lo and behold, what happened was a new thing entered the place called Create Space. Now, Create Space is one of many
Okay.
that will print your book free.
I like free.
And
But you like free.
It was, for me, it was like unbelievable. Like the floodgates opened up because the ability to put something out there and not have to pay up front to and taking nothing away from the Vanity Press people, because, you know, they do what they do and they do it well.
Right.
But this opportunity came along, and I was able to put together the lion's share. It's called the lion's share because the mascot in high school was lion.
Oh, okay.
All
Makes
right.
sense.
And Tommy Huber did the painting.
Look at you, pushing painters too.
Yeah, we're pushing painters because, you know, a lot of times people my age, they're near retirement or thinking they need something special to do, and they start saying, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I'm like, what were you good at? What do you enjoy doing?
Right.
And lo and behold, he's an excellent painter who I've used again on other books.
Right. Very cool.
So that book came out, and using Create Space. Now, let's talk about Create Space for a moment for your viewers. When you go to their website, there's pretty much two ways you can go.
Okay.
All right. There's your, you know, start a new title, blah, 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 no cost, just give us your files and we'll give you a book. All right. And that's how they make their money.
Okay.
What they do is they're pretty much a print-on-demand type of, you know, internet site, and under the guise of publishing, you're putting your files in their hands, and lo and behold, you end up with a product that's absolutely, you know, perfect. All right, and so what this was became this. Or as the newer people your age would say, this became this.
Gotcha.
But we put the cart before the horse there.
Now we have just a few seconds left.
All right.
And because we're on a technology show,
Yes.
Kindle. Can
Kindle,
this get onto my Kindle?
everything here goes on to Kindle the same way. You load it up, put it into your computer, you upload it to Amazon Kindle Direct, and lo and behold, there it is. It's on Kindle within less than 24 hours. It's available for sale on Kindle.
So if I actually had something worth reading, or at least something worth writing, which you're sure I do,
Yes.
I can have a book on Kindle in 24
In
hours.
less than 24 hours. Yeah.
Well, that's inspiration.
Yeah. I mean, this book came out, and there you have it. You know,
And even in print, they print in a day.
In less than one day. And there's another one I wrote with Tommy. These are plays.
You're
by
quite
the way.
prolific.
And then just to show you, this book put out through the Vanity Press, and this one, the same novel, put out through Create Space.
Well, I think we've been inspired. So if you think you have a book in you, and our author says you do, then get writing. You too can have a book in your hands and on a Kindle in 24 hours. Good luck, and thank you for joining us on Technically Speaking.